Weather manipulation, weather modification is not a conspiracy theory. Scientists, researchers, and so forth have told us time and time again they can manipulate the weather. They can create very powerful storms, monsters. The government has been manipulating the weather ever since the 1930s, if not before then.
Weather modification by artificial satellites from 1971. Method for modifying weather using satellites. Artificial ion cloud method and apparatus, also from 71, for creating artificial ion clouds to alter atmospheric conditions. A method of disrupting or controlling the energy of hurricanes and tornadoes. Is there a chance that these patents, like most patents, are not just patented but are actually being used for things?
We actually have something rather interesting when it comes to North Carolina Hurricane Helene and a particular agreement. Now, for those not aware, lithium batteries have been really making their rounds in the news lately. You see, North Carolina has a lot of lithium deposits. There is a corporation that really wants these lithium deposits. That corporation is called Albemarle Corporation. Now, Albemarle is owned by both BlackRock and Vanguard. That shouldn't be very surprising because BlackRock and Vanguard have their hands in everything. But the reason why the Albemarle Corporation said they wanted these lithium deposits was to create lithium batteries for EVs, electronic vehicles. And you have to remember, electronic vehicles are very important to the powers that be, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and so forth, when it comes to the 2030 agenda. Matter of fact, last month in September, the World Economic Forum and the United Nations met to speed up the 2030 agenda. 2 years ago, back in 2022, the Albemarle Corporation wanted to restart mining for lithium at a site along Interstate 85 in Kings Mountain, North Carolina, that was shut down back in the 1980s. But you see, there's a problem. Residents worry about keeping homes if lithium mining restarts in Kings Mountain, the same exact place that the Albemarle Corporation wants to start mining. Well, there's homes, stores, and businesses near these deposits. Some of them are actually on top of these lithium deposits. Take, for example, a technical center along Raven Circle, which is still on the 800-acre plot of land that the Albemarle Corporation wants to dig under. Then there's this woman, Deborah Dixon, who told the news she had been told her family's home along Park Race Road is just outside of the proposed mining site, but not quite far enough away to be spared from its impact. These community members, these residents, they gathered in protest, they had meetings, they said they definitely did not want to move. These residents were going to put up a real battle. They were not going to move. Well, flash forward to February 2024, the Albemarle and the BMW Corporation announced a multi-year agreement to supply battery-grade lithium to BMW for use in their electronic vehicles. The agreement will begin in 2025 and includes a joint research interest in developing safer and more energy-dense lithium-ion batteries. But not just BMW, the Albemarle Corporation also had an agreement with Ford Motor Company and Caterpillar. But it doesn't end there. The United States Department of Defense awarded Albemarle a $90 million agreement to support the expansion of domestic lithium mining and production. The agreement will help Albemarle reopen its Kings Mountain, North Carolina lithium mine, which is expected to be operational between 2025 and 2030, where we have all these residents, stores, and buildings that do not want to move. So what happens when residents do not want to give up their land? Well, just like Hawaii, as coincidence may have it, quote unquote coincidence, Mother Nature kicks in and helps them move, helps them leave. Now, when I say Mother Nature, of course I'm being sarcastic. Well, Hurricane Helene just happened to have ravaged the area. This area was the most impacted by Hurricane Helene. We are talking about towns wiped off the map.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. The mantra stands: we're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube. The saga continues. It's a week now since Hurricane Helene made landfall. And what happened since is nothing short of incredible, absolutely unbelievable. And we are constantly looking for sources on the ground. I told you we have a dear friend in Barnardsville, North Carolina, just outside of Asheville. They are, as far as we know, still cut off. He's talked about mass casualties. He is a survival expert, so they're doing fine, and they're the residents are actually helping each other. But we have more information today from our dear friend and information war correspondent, Ann Vandersteel. She's joining us. Thank you so much, Ann, for joining us today.
Jean, it's always great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you. Unfortunately, under not such great circumstances, but that seems to be the norm these days.
It does.
And you have boots on the ground, and that's usually when something happens somewhere in the United States. You have boots on the ground. What can you tell us? What's the latest that you know?
Well, the boots on the ground are part of Operation Burning Edge, and we have an advanced team that's already there right now reporting. We have air assets that are out delivering supplies, in addition to picking up people who have been significantly injured or harmed. We've got assets in the law enforcement area that are bringing in horrific reports of body counts. One deputy sheriff himself, collected and bagged himself 1,200 plus bodies that he pulled out of rivers and on the side of the road.
That is just one team you're talking about, right?
That's just one man. I have other.
That's
There's air,
one man.
we have air assets. Yeah, Operation Airdrop is there. I've got a journalist also that's traveling now, and he's looking into a variety of stories that we want to investigate further. I don't want to broadcast it out on the air because we want to at least get the information and collate it before we let people know what we're looking for. But
Yeah.
when you have illegal aliens that are being bussed in, days before a storm that they know is forecast to hit their area, and based on the opening video you played, they orchestrated the storm to hit that area. It's very obvious that they had intended to create utter and total chaos in the area. But what's truly sad is that this is bigger. There's a lot more going on, and I think this has big ties into the financial system of our country. The fact that it's insolvent, and we're being challenged with an adversary in BRICS, if you will, that is using true sound money with asset-backed currency, and that is going to quash the cabal, and the cabal is looking how they can profit. And so, part of this whole journey is understanding sovereignty and understanding just how they've stole the entire United States literally out from underneath us. You think you own something, you may own that house, but you're still in a feudalistic relationship, because when you don't pay your property tax, they will take it all. So there's a lot to unpack in all of this, so people understand just the deck of cards they're playing with. But truly, this is our moment to shine, Sean. We can take it all back if we choose. This is, the choice that we have to make if we are in God's army of light or not.
Yes, well, sovereignty is sort of the ongoing subject on our channel. That's self-empowerment, understanding on all level, physical, spiritual, mental, and also lawful, legal. Right? You and I talked about this quite a few times before.
Yeah.
People are. I think such events, and especially the aftermath, is such a wake-up call. I have never seen the kinds of reactions actually are positive in a way that people are aware now, that people are looking into the weather modification tech, that people are looking into what ulterior motives are there to attack an area after the fires, the extensive fires of the last few years, the land grabs out west after Maui, Lahaina, and so forth. I mean, unfortunately, there's so many events, so many times where, unlike in previous decades, land is being confiscated. The feds come in and they literally send people away. We've heard horrific reports in terms of first or volunteers being shut down, turned back, threatened with arrest. Do you have any information on how it is right now on the ground? Is there any improvement with that?
No, there isn't. In fact, just because the mushroom in the White House did a flyby yesterday and shut down the airspace, which really hindered the rescue and recovery efforts, they are now trying to keep the airspace, void of people being able to move around. And up until this point, it was all Americans that were doing the rescues, private citizens and helicopters. And people that were taking the first responder initiatives themselves, because so far the cavalry hasn't come. All we've got now is a memo from Kamala. You're going to get a check for $750. That's not going to do a thing. These people have lost everything. Chris Martenson putting out reports with respect to the federal government having appeared into towns like Chimney Rock, which literally the town is gone, and telling the few residents that were there, you don't own anything here anymore. The federal government does, and you have to leave. We're going to bulldoze it all, including the bodies. There'll be no proper burial. There'll be nothing left. We're going to start over, and you don't own the land. So, when it comes to, rescue and recovery efforts, this is truly an American this is going to be an American initiative. And Joe Biden did tell us that the other day in his little soundbite when he said there's no money from FEMA. The Americans are going to have to start to pay. Well, what did we pay taxes for all these years? If you're still in the B system, you're now recognizing that privilege of being a U.S. citizen is really not a privilege at all, because they're extending all the benefits to the illegals that are coming across the border. And these are the very same illegals that are creating chaos, theft, looting, and rape in an area that has already been savaged and under a severe supply chain crisis, compounded by yet another supply chain crisis. And this is all, again, the timing in all this, John, is so suspect. But, the people on the ground are trying to be as resilient as possible, and they're staying as positive, but it's starting to wear thin. Many people without food and water for now, going on day 7. And of course, when you're being told to stand down, as they are at Fort Bragg, I refuse to call it Fort Liberty. I will stick with the Confederate Army name of Fort Bragg. When they're being told to stand down, there's a problem. There's a serious, serious problem.
What will it take? At some point, when you are in the military and you know that you get an unlawful order, when you know that you get a immoral order, there are times when it's time to defy those orders and go and do what needs to be done. I try to do the math, and I don't know if you have any numbers as to how many people are actually still cut off and unable to travel by road or be reached by road. But I would assume that with all the volunteers and with all the action that we could have easily flown out in this week, starting Friday last week, easily flown out everyone who's still cut off. I don't see why that couldn't have happened with, every day, all day, flying in and out. That should be possible, right?
It should be, if you have enough air assets. But again, we're not being, the people there only have seen 2 Chinook helicopters. They haven't seen any other government machines flying through the air of any kind. It is, except for Air Force One with, like I said, the mushroom yesterday flying by. This has been civilian assets, and they don't have, a lot of these people who own aircraft. I was talking with a pilot yesterday. They said, Ann, you need to understand something. Because they've actually secured a plane for Operation Burning Edge to use so that we can move around and survey and deliver goods and supplies, et cetera, and rescue some people as we can, and also do live on the ground interviews. But we have to pay for the fuel. They said these people that own these planes own the planes, and it's a car payment, a plane payment, and fuel is as expensive as a car, but much more for aviation. So they don't have the budget to be in the air 12, 14 hours a day flying around. That's not within their means. So they are dependent on donations, which means they use the airplane as much as possible, considering the finances. So we don't have the support that we should have with respect to the government, which could make all the difference in the world. And again, Jean, this is all by design. This is clearly all by design, when they can stand up and say they've delivered $600 billion to Ukraine, essentially, in the last, couple of years, and don't have anything for the people that have been hardest hit by a, quote, natural disaster, an air quote. This is a complete slap in the face. And Joe Biden is saying, well, the Americans are going to have to figure it out. Well, again, there's your demarcation line. They just gave us some signal comms right there. Americans don't have to figure it out, because the United States government, there's the U.S. and America. They're 2 different and distinct things, right? And so they're telling us through their comms, and I think they're being very straightforward at this point. They're not here to help us, but they'll take your money if you want to pop yourself into their system and gift them that tax dollar. They'll take it, but they're not going to put it back into FEMA. They're going to send it to Ukraine.
Incredibly ironic. Last Thursday, when Helene made landfall, the President Biden announced another $8 billion for Ukraine on the very day that the hurricane struck and made landfall. And so since then, I'm hard pressed to find actual figures as to how much the federal government is willing to give, because they haven't given anything other than that $750 and a few meals and water. But nobody has said, because you can't even estimate the fallout, but it's in the hundreds of billions, and nobody said a word about that. But you said something about the clear comms and by design, and this is becoming more and more obvious. What is strange to me is how do you, and are they even trying to justify these things? Because I believe it was yesterday that, was it CBS or ABC? I forget, but it was one of the mainstream media gophers that a report was issued about Lahaina that dried grass and power lines coming down caused the devastation in Lahaina. They put that out yesterday. I think the timing is sort of coincidental, but how do you justify these orders? How do you justify a stand down order? How do you justify that to the people, to the media, to turn away volunteers, highly trained volunteers, to turn
Mm.
away people who are willing to put up their own money? Have you heard any official justification?
Uh, no, I have not been given any official justification, and I haven't seen it broadcast anywhere other than to say they don't have any money for FEMA. That's the official message that we're getting. If you want to really understand what the message is, I think you have to look at how they've treated our borders. They've completely ignored Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, in which the federal government is chartered. They're mandated, they're edicted, they're by law. They need to defend our borders against both enemies, foreign and domestic. They completely ignored that, despite all of us clamoring for it. Yet you saw a lot of good fights between Abbott and DeSantis and a few other governors about this. Yet all the while, the 50 United States governors, and I mean every single one of them, I don't care how great you think your governor is, nobody stood on Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, Jean, which said that the states could defend themselves against a foreign invasion. Nobody stood up to close their borders, especially Governor Abbott. So I see this as nothing but foo fighting, fake fighting, getting in the octagon like UFC style. And it's just a show. It's a show. But it's, again, this show is being controlled by a federal corporation. 28 USC 3002 15A, the United States is a federal corporation. So again, all of this showmanship we're seeing is literally to show the American people, who are the sovereigns of the land, that you're not in control right now because you keep acquiescing your power to the United States government. And the United States government is going to keep punishing and punishing and punishing you because you'll take it. Look, they launched a bioweapon on us. They lied about the origin. They lied about anything to do with gain of function. Fauci is the highest paid public servant in the country, and he is a war criminal, massive, epic proportions of crimes against humanity in our country and abroad. And yet, what are we doing about it? Nothing here, because we have no apparatus to deal with it. So where are we right now? We need to enter the period. We need to skip the Civil War and go right to Reconstruction and stand back up, like our declaration determines and declares, to alter and abolish the current regime and stand up a true government of, by, and for the people, and eliminate this corporatocracy, bureaucracy of fraud that is layered in their own U.S. codes and statutes on top of our Constitution, which has smothered the life out of the Republic. We can get it all back because the Republic is still there underneath it all. But this is when Americans have to find out, Jean, if we have the mental fortitude and the intestinal fortitude to stand up and, unfortunately, tell these feds, get off my property. And that's exactly what we need to do. And I think they picked a fight in a tough area because those boys up in Appalachia, they don't take too kindly to the federal government.
I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, this is not Lahaina. This is a different
Exactly.
animal. I was just out there in Barnardsville in the woods. We were doing a survival training a month ago.
Awesome.
And I met some of the people there, and these are great people, but you don't mess with them. They've been there for generations. They know their mountains in and out, and they will not leave because they've been incentivized to leave. As we've seen, BlackRock, Vanguard are highly represented there. The lithium mines, and this is a huge one. This is not something they're simply going to walk away from, right? Because the operation is already scheduled to be ramped up in the next year. Like you said, people have already been offered money to leave. I don't think anyone's accepted. But we are at this point where people are using mules to come in, right? They're using packing mules to cross the mountains and bring help to the people. And maybe that's what it takes. I see that with every disaster, with every incredibly unbelievable reaction by what they call themselves authorities, and you just go, the people are finally starting to wake up. What do you see, and not just in in that area, but all over the United States. What do you see in terms of grassroots movements, sovereign people, self-empowered people? What is happening on that level?
Well, the sovereign and the self empowered are prepped and ready, right? That's not an issue. The issue is you might have a sovereign self empowered living in an HOA, for instance, where I'll use myself as an example. I live in an HOA. And unfortunately, the board of this HOA, were absolutely irate that I hung my flag upside down to show that we are a nation in distress. And there's you can use their 8 USC has their code about how you can hang a flag. You are not penalized for hanging your flag upside down. That is a representation of a nation in distress. I cited all their rules, all their codes, the Florida HOA statutes about all of this, and they threatened to fine me $100 a day, and I would have to go through the visitors line, which could add untold time to me just going in and out of my own residence. So, so basically I took my flag, I put a spotlight on it and hung it inside my garage in front of the window upside down. So it's still visible, but it's now inside my property. There's nothing they can say about it. There's always a way to get around and skin the cat a different way. But I am around people who don't understand what we are talking about right now. And I'll tell you this, when the what hits the what fan, they will be coming to me saying, "Oh my God, what do we do now?" Well, fortunately, in this neighborhood, we have well water and we have septic, so we are not too reliant on services. But basically everybody in here is a lot of former law enforcement and police, fire. We have a lot of doctors in here, but we're pretty, pro Second Amendment and self defense. But in terms of prepping, I dare say a lot of people in here are prepped. All I can tell you is people have a lot of land, and it's, the HOA rules about a manicured lawn are going to go bye-bye when you need to start gardening and start producing your own food. So I think you're going to see pockets in the cities where people are absolutely out of control, and the illegals that have, and set up camps there. New York City, for instance, 1 in every 5 hotels is a illegal alien migrant camp. 20% of the hotels are now shelters for the illegals. So the cities like that are going to, Chicago, go up in flames. You're going to have the old Chicago style gangs, old New York gangs are going to start to take on the appearance of law enforcement, because they're not going to take too kindly to somebody coming in like Trenderagua that is, raping and pillaging. They're not going to accept that, because it's turf war now. But at some point, that turf war, when they've exhausted the resources where they are, like the Borg from Star Trek, is going to spread out into suburbia. And then eventually they're going to be looking for food, because suburbia will run out of food. And all this, of course, is magnified by the fact that we're, in the middle of a longshoreman crisis, which, store supplies will start to run thin, especially as people start to hear this and the rhetoric ramps up and the panic sets in. It becomes like a hurricane prep party where people run out and buy every last stitch of toilet paper. And you're seeing it now in the stores. I was in a Sam's Club on Saturday, nothing happening last Saturday. Yesterday, crazy, absolutely crazy. Now in the middle of a week, it's crazy, but on a Saturday, it's dead, because the news cycle hadn't hit about the longshoreman strike. Once it did, not a stitch of toilet paper to be found.
Yeah, we checked the regular places where we shop and saw that stuff is already being limited. There's already limited what you can buy, and those are all things that are only going to get worse, because if you do the math and you see the impact, especially along the southeastern seaboard, that's really where it's right now. It's a very nefarious situation, and we have, which I call, we might differ on that, but I call it the presidential reality show running right now. And there's this contest coming up. It's like it's like American Idol or something. And that's going to come up in a month. And I don't know if the plan is to actually delay and have a situation where people can't get to the polls. I really don't know currently what the plan is, but it seems to be a month of huge disruptions, more than any time before. So how do you see that unfold? Will there be elections in the United States?
I think you're onto something there. There's a definite plan to delay and to disrupt. So in the areas that have been hardest hit, voting is going to be problematic. But the good news is the people that they hit are the most resilient in terms of, and dogmatic about, making sure they elect Donald Trump. So while it's going to be very difficult, these people are going to find they're not going to want to vote for Kamala. The Democrats are now they're horrified in the area about, $750. They can't believe it. So they're just upset. So those people will find a way to vote. Where we're going to see the massive disruption with the fraud. I mean, Florida is not the gold standard, despite what the state will tell you. It's full of fraud. I've been reporting on that. and all the various supervisors of election candidates that have done all the legwork to prove, and all the election integrity groups. It's full of fraud. I do believe that there's multi-vectors in this attack on us, but we have our own vectors that are at work, and they are truly constitutional and lawful and inspired by God. And I'll explain that in a second, what I mean there. But you're going to see continued disruption from, quotes, natural disasters, wink, wink. You will see, because we have another hurricane coming right behind this. Get ready. It's coming your way too. And that'll be disruptive. But you're also going to see violence in the cities. You're going to see a multiple of things, including attacks on our own soil. Because as I've been reporting, we had surface to air missiles that were smuggled in across the border about 10 days ago. And from my intelligence, we have possibly more coming. And we also know we have weapons caches. I mean, Fast and Furious, and of course, the work we've done on the border and the intelligence we have, there are weapons cached, stashed around the country. We have 120,000 PLA Chinese, type officer armies in this army members in this country. So things are not going to be good. This is all open source stuff. It's been reported through Operation Burning Edge. I'm not revealing anything classified at this point. So people should be aware and be prepared. Now, that being said, there is something in the works on the constitutional side. There's an organization called United Sovereign Americans, and it's all about looking at all of the election integrity evidence and asking the big question: is all of this a civil rights violation? Because to date, all of the lawsuits that have gone in front of the Supreme Court were bringing in election evidence, including voting fraud, Dominion flipping votes, mail-in ballot fraud, fake voters, blah, 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 all the evidence of fraud. But the problem is they weren't given standing. And the reason they're not given standing, Jean, is because states run their elections. So if you have a problem in your
nobody
state,
was given standing, right? Including the candidate.
well, right, because again, the candidate, is fighting for himself. But in the states, every state runs the elections differently. Tennessee has a different election protocol than we do in Florida, and they do in Arizona, and some states are mail-in only, and so on. And so the states are responsible for their elections. That's where the standing ends, okay? However, if you have bad voter rolls, which every state does, and you've got illegal or dead people voting on voter rolls, casting ballots, and it's canceling somebody else's vote, whether it's a Dem or a Republican, that's called voter disenfranchisement. That's a civil rights violation. So what happens now? United Sovereign Americans launched 9 lawsuits across the country, with more coming. And they're going on, and they're using the same template for every lawsuit. It's all about civil rights. The beauty of this strategy is they have won some and they have lost some. So the same argument won, same argument lost. And because they're in 9 states, they're in multiple federal court jurisdictions. Now you have a conflict. Now you get expedited to the Supreme Court to be heard. And guess what the Supreme Court's number one responsibility is? Protect your civil rights. So now when the Supreme Court looks at this case, John, they're going to go, okay, I understand the merits of your argument. How do you know the civil rights were violated? Voila, floodgates open, in comes all the evidence of election fraud from all 50 states. That's how you get it in the door. And now you've got them, lock, stock, and barrel, looking at the evidence. They can't deny it. They understand the argument of civil rights violation. We will know very quickly if we have a Supreme Court that will stand with us on the Civil Rights Act and our Bill of Rights, or we have a communist regime up there in DC. It's going to be very clear, and Americans will have some hard decisions to make at that point, one way or the other.
Well, you seem to have more faith in this system than I do. I
have no faith in it. I'm just an optimist.
No, well, I'm an eternal optimist, but I have faith.
I call it terminal. No, it's terminal optimism at this point, John.
I have faith in the people. See, I have faith in the divine spark in the people. I have faith in that. And I know that I see it in our incredible audience. Our audience is incredible. I see the empowerment, the self-responsibility, and the way that they're shifting and changing their lifestyles and really taking responsibility for themselves, their communities. That's what inspires me. I couldn't care less if they put a fence around DC that's a mile high. That would be one of the best solutions. And let that be whatever it is. What I do see, Ann, is, and I know you see it even more because of the operations that you're a part of. You're reporting your boots on the ground in many American disaster areas, is that every system can only sustain so many pressure attacks. At some point, a human being crumbles, and at some point a system crumbles. And while we need this system to crumble, it is an incredibly uncomfortable thing when it happens. And I think we're maybe 2, 3 pressure points away from that actually happening, where the overwhelming is just so big that the system itself crumbles down, and that will catch a lot of people off guard. What is your advice to people? What can they do today? It's October 3rd, 2024. What can people do today to help themselves and their communities?
Well, first of all, take some personal responsibility for your own welfare, your own health, safety, and welfare for you and your family. That's the most important thing because everything is local. General Flynn always says that local action has national impact. And we need to be very, very hyper local right now. And so make sure you have everything you need in your house to survive for at least 6 months. I would liken it to a year, but do the best you can for 6 months. Maybe if you can't get everything you need, collaborate with neighbors that you trust to try and make sure you have communications. Maybe you split and share a satellite phone because we're going to lose comms. I feel very comfortable in saying communications are going to be a problem. Look, it already is Verizon, Bank of America with money. So make sure you have cash. If you have gold and silver physically, I would have some of that as well for bartering. Take stock of inventory in your house of things you can use for trade. If you have trade gifts yourself, you're a mechanic, a plumber, a nurse, whatever. Make sure that you are assessing what you have that are valuable assets that can be used in barter and trade. You're going to want to have obviously food, water, money, backup power, however that comes in. I highly recommend sat123.com. Those guys are awesome with their emergency backup power supply sources. They have solar power generators of all sizes that'll run your whole house, small ones. I travel with a little Starlink Mini. That thing is great. I'll be anywhere in the jungle in Panama and can get it lined up and go live at high speed. In addition to a little power supply that's solar powered. There's so much you can do, and then learn. I highly recommend Health Ranger Mike Adams. He has got incredible resources that are free PDFs to download. Prepping food. If Costco, Sam's, and all these places, they sell it. They sell the freeze-dried buckets. If you don't want to figure out what cans to buy, just know you can live on meals ready to eat. It's not that, there's all sorts of things. And Jean, I know you offer products as well. Just make sure you're stocked and don't wait. It's really borderline too late because of the supply chain crisis in which we are starting to descend into with this longshoreman strike. So that's what I recommend. And just make sure you know where your children and family are. Hunker down. Just be really, once you decide to make this move, be ready to defend your position. And of course, defense, Second Amendment, be strong in that.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more with you.
I don't doubt you're not.
Hell no, we're on the range a lot these days. Just making
Good.
sure our skills are on. And a lot of people are spread thin, and I wouldn't dare to ask them. But for those who have resources and who are able and willing to help, I've been looking for a way that we can get funds to the people in the disaster areas, and I don't trust any of the official charities and whatnot. So do you have a way where people can get funds or goods over to the people in the disaster areas?
I do actually. Let me pull it up right now because he just sent me the most recent. This is an organization, Operation Airdrop, Operation-Airdrop. Sorry. Yeah. Operation-airdrop.com. My computer's talking to me, but there's another phone number people can actually call and provide fuel directly to the pilots, because these pilots, as I explained, are actually using their own aircraft and they're flying around right now to pick up people. In fact, one of them yesterday I spoke to had rescued 6 children, and there was about 30 who had lost their parents in this one area. And these 6 had massive evidence of sexual assault. And these were all children under adolescent age. From one family.
Okay, wait. So you're talking about children in disaster areas that had just gone through that incredible trauma, and they have been assaulted afterwards?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Here it is. I know it's just so horrific. I broke that story.
We should send some rope that way too.
Oh, I know some boys that are headed that way. I'm aware of some people that are moving there now because you can't drop off busloads of illegal aliens in Asheville 2 days before a hurricane and expect them with no resources to not turn into animals. And, when you've got Trinidad gang members running around the country now, this is just, and these people came from countries where 25 cents bought a cup of coffee, right? Today, you walk into a Starbucks, it's $8-10, depending on what your latte vente is or whatever it is you're getting, all that FUFA stuff. Here is something for your audience, and it's for the airdrop fuel donations. And this is really critical because these are the people that are going in on helicopters. In fact, a guy I know right now, Gary Haven, is in his helicopter and he's flying people in and out right now and rescuing people at this moment. He's a wonderful man. He doesn't need the money, however, but a lot of these guys do. It's call for airdrop fuel donations 704-735-0602. And in fact, this is coming from our Operation Burning Edge teammate member. And if I don't even know if I can screen share this.
You should be able to, if you go to present in your,
there it is.
You should be able.
Got it.
I'll put it up
there
here.
There it is.
Okay, fantastic. That's the number. And we will put that in the pinned comment and the video description. And also Operation-Airdrop. Is it .com or .org?
It's I'll put that up as well. It's Operation Airdrop, and here it is, OperationAirdrop.com. And these guys are fantastic. They've done work in other hurricanes before, but they're very focused on Hurricane Helene. These are just ordinary people that have, bought planes, and it's like a car payment, but they can't afford fuel 10, 12, 14 hours a day, but they're willing to go in, and they're doing some pretty amazing rescues right now. Pretty amazing rescues. And so these guys are great. They're being organized out of Lincoln Airport, which is this organization right here, the Lincoln County Airport in North Carolina. Operation Airdrop is there. They have a huge hangar now that has been turned into a staging area for supplies and a command and control center. I highly recommend these guys. Spencer and Chelsea Radke are brother and sister-in-law, and they are really spearheading this organization with Operation Airdrop. So highly recommend it.
Good. We appreciate your recommendation. I simply cannot encourage people to donate to any other organizations that will take 80-90% for their admin and barely give anything to the people.
Correct.
That's just simply not an option. So thank you for that, Ann. And thank you so much for your time, for all the work that you do. You're everywhere. It's like, I know a few people like you, like Doc Pete Chambers, our mutual friend. He's whenever something is going down, he is there. He's one of the great folks out there fighting every day. Love Doc. And you're just like that. Every time there's something going on, I know I can reach out to Ann. She's probably close to the scene. And thank you for all your work. Where can people keep up with you and hear the latest?
Great. My X feed is blistering these days. So just follow me at Ann Vandersteel on X. I'm launching a website soon, but I'm keeping the information hot on X as it comes in. I am just literally putting it out as quickly as possible, trying to verify everything. If I don't have it verified, I say possible or not confirmed or whatever, but getting it out there because we've got to get people sharing it as far and wide as possible to provide relief for others. And the other thing too is if people are missing and they're found, we're trying to relay that as well. So you might see some, missing people showing up here and there and just letting the world know, hey, they're alive, because people have been panicked about others around the country. They can't get a hold of their loved ones.
It's all unspeakable. And you said something so important. In these times, information verification, we have to always know that the perpetrators are always disseminating disinformation campaigns, sending people down rabbit holes that lead nowhere, and that usually take up a lot of time. So it's important to get at least 2 or 3 sources and confirmation on things so we can actually get factual information. That's also to our audience. I know it's hard. I know it's actually hard work, but it's what we got to do. We can't trust any of the sources that are out there. We have to verify. I think that's highly important. And information war correspondent. I love that title, and it's so appropriate. Ann Vandersteel, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Great to see you. Have a blessed afternoon.
You as well, Ann. Thank you. And Inspired Tribe, we love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon. could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.